There are moments in life when you open your wallet and there's nothing there, nothing. And the problem isn't just the money, it's the silence that comes with it. It's the fear, it's the shame. It's that question nobody likes to say out loud. What now? Maybe today you're living exactly this. The bills piling up, the month still far from over. Your head heavy, your heart tired, and you try to keep the faith. But you confess in silence, it's hard. And it's precisely in these moments that the life of a saint like Padre Pio becomes dangerous, because it confronts us. Padre Pio wasn't a saint of pretty phrases. He was a wounded man, poor, sick, persecuted, and many times without any money at all. There's a false image many people have of the saints, as if they lived protected from reality, as if nothing ever ran out. But Padre Pio knew real scarcity. The kind that tightens your stomach, the kind that steals your sleep, the kind that makes a human being feel small. At the convent of San Giovanni Rotondo, there were days when they didn't have resources even for the basics. And yet, desperate people knocked at the door. Fathers without work, mothers without food, men humiliated by need. They arrived hoping for a quick solution, money, concrete help. And many times, Padre Pio had nothing to give. Nothing. And yet, nobody left there empty. Because when he didn't have money, he offered something rarer, something almost nobody knows how to offer: absolute trust in God. Padre Pio understood something that hurts to accept. Your wallet empties, but God's hand, never. There are accounts of people who approached him almost in despair. They spoke fast. They cried. They explained everything, as if they needed to convince heaven of their own pain. And Padre Pio, in silence, listened. Sometimes he closed his eyes. Sometimes he only sighed. And then he'd say something simple, almost disappointing for those who wanted an immediate miracle. Two words that don't sound powerful to those who live by the world's logic, but that carry immense spiritual weight. Padre Pio repeated these two words to himself in the darkest moments, when physical pain was unbearable, when accusations crushed him, when the future seemed closed. And these words were something most people never expect, something that sounds too simple, too small for the size of the problem. But before I tell you what they are, I need you to understand why they mattered so much. Because if you don't understand the why, the words themselves won't mean anything. They'll just be two more religious phrases you hear and forget. And that would be a tragedy. Because these two words saved lives, changed destinies, opened impossible doors. Not because they're magic, but because they connect us to the only source that never runs dry. If you're going through financial difficulties right now, if you need Padre Pio's intercession in your life, write in the comments with faith, "Padre Pio, intercede for me." Let your request be heard. Let your pain be seen, because saints aren't distant figures in history books. They're friends who walk with us through the fire. And Padre Pio knew fire better than most. Many people ask, but does that even solve anything? And the truth is hard. It doesn't solve things the way the world expects. It's not magic. It's not a formula. It's not a guarantee of immediate money. It's abandonment. It's saying, I don't understand. I don't see a way out, but I won't let go of God's hand. Padre Pio said the greatest human mistake is trying to control everything when you've already lost control. And that's exactly what happens when money runs out. We panic, the mind races, the heart hardens, and fear starts giving orders. But where fear commands, God doesn't reign. That's why Padre Pio insisted so much on trust. Not naive trust, but suffered trust, tested, proven in fire. There's a scene I need you to see clearly. Picture this. A man walks through the narrow stone corridors of the convent. His shoes are worn. His hands shake. He hasn't eaten properly in days, but that's not why he's trembling. He's trembling because he doesn't know how he'll face his children tonight. How do you tell a 5-year-old there's no dinner? How do you explain to innocents that the world can be this cruel? He finds Padre Pio in the small visiting room. The smell of old wood and melted candle wax fills the air. The saint's hands rest on his lap, hidden under fingerless gloves, because the stigmata wounds never stop bleeding. The man starts talking, fast. The words tumble over each other. He explains the job he lost, the rent he can't pay, the shame of borrowing from neighbors who have nothing either. His voice cracks when he mentions his wife's face this morning. That look of quiet desperation she tried to hide. And Padre Pio just listens. His eyes half closed, his breathing slow. Some people thought he was distant in these moments, cold even. But those who knew him understood. He was praying while you spoke, carrying your pain to God before you even finished describing it. The man stops talking, waiting, hoping for a miracle, for money to appear, for a solution he can hold in his hands. And Padre Pio opens his eyes, looks at him with a gentleness that somehow makes the silence bearable, and says only this: go home, trust in God. That's it, nothing more. The man stands there, frozen. You can see it in accounts from witnesses, the confusion on people's faces in these moments. They came for bread, and they got what sounded like empty words. But here's what Padre Pio knew that the desperate man couldn't see yet. God was already moving. The answer was already in motion, not in the room where they stood, but in the invisible places where heaven touches earth. Now let me tell you what those 2 words were. The ones Padre Pio whispered to himself when his own body felt like it was being torn apart. The ones he repeated when the Vatican silenced him for years. The ones he clung to when doubt screamed louder than faith. Jesus, I trust. That's it. Jesus, I trust. In Italian, Gesù confido. In English, just 3 syllables that contain everything. And I know what you're thinking. That's too simple. That can't be enough. I need something bigger. But that's exactly the point. It's not a pretty phrase you say when everything's fine. It's what you say when you have nothing left to hold on to. It's the last gasp before you go under. It's not a prayer of triumph. It's a prayer of survival. When Padre Pio said, Jesus, I trust, he wasn't pretending the pain didn't exist. He wasn't denying the scarcity. He wasn't putting on a spiritual mask. He was admitting, I can't fix this. I can't see how this ends well, but you can. That's the difference between fake faith and real faith. Fake faith says, everything's fine, God's got this, while smiling through gritted teeth. Real faith says, nothing's fine, I'm terrified, but I'm not letting go. Padre Pio taught that trust isn't the absence of fear, it's the refusal to let fear become your God. Because here's what happens when we're broke, when we're desperate, when we're at the end. We start worshiping the problem. We wake up thinking about it. We go to sleep thinking about it. It's the first thing in the morning and the last thing at night. The problem becomes bigger than God. And that's when we're lost. Not because God abandoned us, but because we can't see him anymore through the wall of fear we've built. Jesus, I trust, is the wrecking ball. It's small, it's simple, but it breaks through. And sometimes the breakthrough isn't immediate. Sometimes you say it today and nothing changes tomorrow, but something changes in you. The grip of panic loosens just a little. The tunnel vision clears just enough to see one step forward. And that's how God works most of the time, not in explosions, but in whispers, not in spectacle, but in the small opening that becomes a door. Picture Padre Pio in his cell at 3 a.m. The stone floor is cold beneath his knees. His body is on fire with pain from the wounds. Every breath hurts. And in his hands, the wooden rosary beads. You can hear them clicking softly as his fingers move from one to the next. Click, click, click. His lips barely move, but the words are there. Hail Mary, full of grace. The beads are worn smooth from years of this. Decades of prayers whispered in the dark. Some nights he can barely hold them because the stigmata wounds in his palms are bleeding through the bandages. But he doesn't stop, even when his voice cracks, even when the pain makes him gasp between prayers, because the rosary wasn't just devotion for Padre Pio, it was his lifeline, his weapon, the thing he held onto when everything else fell away. Friends, I know walking this path alone is hard. If these stories about Padre Pio are touching your heart, if you're hungry to discover the greatest weapon he used every single day, I've prepared something special for you. It's called The Power of the Rosary with Padre Pio, Miracles, Protection, and Divine Graces. This spiritual treasure is going to help you pray the rosary with deeper devotion and understanding. You'll discover the miracles and testimonies of those who've already experienced its power. You'll learn Padre Pio's most impactful teachings and phrases about prayer, the ones he actually lived by when everything seemed impossible. You'll receive a 30-day prayer guide with daily intentions to strengthen your faith, one day at a time. And you'll access special prayers for protection, healing, and liberation that Padre Pio himself recommended to people who came to him in desperate need. The rosary was Padre Pio's great weapon, the thing he held onto when he had nothing else. And today, it can be yours too. Don't miss this opportunity to strengthen your spiritual life with material that's already helped thousands of people walk through their own dark valleys. To download it, just click the link pinned in the comments below. Now, let me tell you what happened to that desperate father who left the convent feeling confused and even a little angry. The man walked out of that convent feeling like he'd been dismissed, like his pain didn't matter, like God himself had turned away. He walked home slowly, each step heavier than the last. The sun was setting, and in a few hours his children would ask for dinner. And he'd have to look into their eyes and say, "What? That he went to see a saint and got nothing? That prayers don't pay bills?" His jaw tightened, his fists clenched. He was angry at Padre Pio, angry at God, angry at himself for believing that faith could put food on the table. But when he turned the corner to his street, he saw something strange. A neighbor standing outside his door. Not just any neighbor, a man he barely spoke to, someone who'd never helped before, never even offered. The kind of neighbor you nod at in the morning and forget by noon. The man was holding something, bags, several bags. And as the father got closer, his heart started pounding for a different reason now. The neighbor looked almost embarrassed, shifted his weight from foot to foot, and said something that still gives people chills when they hear this story. I don't know why. But today, I felt like I needed to help you. Inside those bags, bread, pasta, vegetables, meat, enough food for a week. And in an envelope, folded neatly, money. Enough to cover the rent that month. The father stood there unable to speak, his anger crumbling, his pride breaking, and all he could do was cry. The neighbor kept saying, "I'm sorry I didn't come sooner. I woke up this morning and couldn't stop thinking about your family." Couldn't stop thinking. That's how God works. He doesn't announce himself with trumpets. He plants a thought in someone's mind, a small, persistent nudge that won't go away until they act on it. And that neighbor had no idea he was an answer to prayer. He probably thought it was just his own kindness. But Padre Pio knew. When people told him these stories later, he never looked surprised. He'd just nod slowly and say something like, "See, God doesn't forget." Because here's the truth that changes everything. When someone truly trusts, God moves heaven and earth through the most unexpected channels. He doesn't need your plan. He doesn't need your understanding. He just needs your yes. Your "Jesus, I trust," even when you can't see 1 inch in front of you. And this is where it gets uncomfortable for a lot of people, because we want to know how. We want to see the plan. We want God to explain himself before we surrender. But Padre Pio taught something that sounds almost harsh at first. When money runs out, God is watching your heart, not to punish you, but to purify you. The lack reveals where your security was really placed. If it was in money, the ground disappears and you fall apart. If it was in God, the pain exists, but your soul stays standing. This doesn't mean poverty is good. This doesn't mean God wants you to suffer. It means that sometimes the only way we learn where our foundation is when everything else gets shaken. Padre Pio said something really strong that makes people uncomfortable. Material poverty hurts, but spiritual poverty kills. And what he meant was this: you can be broke and still be rich in faith, or you can have everything and be spiritually bankrupt. He'd seen both. Rich people came to him destroyed inside, and poor people came to him radiating peace. The difference was never in the bank account, it was in who they were holding on to when everything else fell away. That's why he called people back to confession so insistently, to sincere return to God. Because often life falls into disorder when the soul has already been disordered for a long time. Not because God punishes with poverty, that's not how he works, but because when we drift from the source, we lose connection to the current that sustains everything. We start making decisions from fear instead of wisdom. We grab at things that can't hold us. We trust in what fails. And Padre Pio would look at people and say, when did you last confess? When did you last really talk to God, not just ask him for things? Because there's a difference between praying at God and praying with God. One is a transaction, the other is a relationship, and relationships survive storms. Transactions don't. He also insisted almost obsessively on the daily rosary, even when your head is full, even when your heart is tight, even when you don't feel anything, maybe especially then. He'd tell people, Mary never abandons those who truly trust her, and the proof was in the stories, thousands of them. People who prayed the rosary in their darkest hour and found that help came in ways they never expected, not always as a spectacular miracle. Sometimes just as a door that opens, a person who appears, an opportunity you didn't see coming, a sudden shift in circumstances that can't be explained by logic alone. Padre Pio taught something practical that anyone can do, starting right now. When you don't have money, don't stop praying. Don't stop acting with honesty. Don't stop doing good. Because even in scarcity, generosity is still possible. You might not be able to give money, but you can give time. You can give presence. You can give a listening ear to someone else who's struggling. And here's the mystery. Generosity moves heaven. It breaks the spiritual blockage that fear creates. When you're broke and you still find a way to help someone else, even in the smallest way, you're telling God, I trust you're going to provide for me so I can still pour out what little I have. That kind of trust doesn't go unnoticed. There are accounts of Padre Pio giving away his own food when the convent barely had enough. Someone would ask, Father, what will you eat? And he'd just smile and say, God will send something. And it always did. Not because he was a saint and you're not, but because he understood a law that most people never tap into. What you hold tight, you lose. What you release in trust multiplies. It's the same principle Jesus taught with the loaves and fishes. The miracle didn't happen by hoarding, it happened by giving away what little there was. Now, I'm not saying give away money you need for rent. I'm not saying be irresponsible. Padre Pio wasn't reckless, but he was radical in his trust. And there's a difference. Recklessness says, I don't need to think God will fix it. Radical trust says, I'll do everything I can, and then I'll trust God with what I can't control. You work, you plan, you act responsibly, but you don't worship the outcome. You don't make an idol out of security, because the moment security becomes your God, you've already lost the very thing you're trying to protect. Padre Pio lived this every day. He worked tirelessly, hearing confessions for 12, 14, 16 hours straight. He built hospitals with money he didn't have, trusting it would come. And it always did. Not because he was lucky, but because he never let fear make his decisions. And that's the lesson for you today, right now, in whatever financial desert you're walking through. The lesson isn't, don't worry about money. The lesson is, don't let money worry become your master. There's a difference between concern and slavery. Concern says, this is serious, I need to address it. Slavery says, this is everything, I can't think about anything else. One leads to action, the other leads to paralysis. And God can work with action. He can't work with paralysis. So maybe you're sitting there right now and you're tired. Tired of hearing just trust when the bills are real. When the phone won't stop ringing with collection calls. When you've applied to 20 jobs and heard nothing back. When you've done everything right and it still went wrong. I get it. And so did Padre Pio. He knew what it's like when trust feels like the hardest thing in the world. When it feels like you're being asked to believe in something invisible while everything visible is falling apart. But here's what I need you to hear. You don't have to feel it for it to work. You don't have to be full of peace and joy when you say, Jesus, I trust. You can say it through gritted teeth. You can say it while crying. You can say it while you're angry, confused, and completely lost. God isn't offended by your weakness. He moves toward it. He's not waiting for you to have perfect faith. He's waiting for you to have honest faith. The kind that says, I don't understand this. I don't like this. But I'm not letting go. That's the faith that moved Padre Pio through 50 years of physical agony. That's the faith that kept him standing when the church itself seemed to turn against him. That's the faith that built hospitals out of nothing. That's the faith that changed thousands of lives, and it can change yours. Not because the words are magic, but because they connect you to someone who's been waiting to carry what you can't. So here's what I'm asking you to do. If you're facing financial difficulty right now, if money has run out and fear has moved in, I want you to write something in the comments. Write it as a public act of faith. Write it even if you're not sure you believe it yet. Write, Jesus, I trust. And if you want, add your intention, your specific struggle, the thing that's keeping you up at night. Because when you speak it out loud, when you make it public, something shifts. The shame loses its power. The isolation breaks. And you become part of a community of people who are walking through the same fire. You're not alone in this. There are people reading these comments right now who are in the exact same battle. And when they see your faith, even your struggling, imperfect faith, it strengthens theirs. That's how the body of Christ works. We carry each other. And if you know someone who's in this place right now, someone who's run out of money and is running out of hope, share this video with them. Don't wait. Don't assume they'll be fine. Sometimes 2 words save a soul from complete despair. Sometimes hearing one story about Padre Pio is the thing that keeps someone holding on for one more day. And that one day might be the day everything changes. You know, Padre Pio learned to trust God when he had absolutely nothing. No money, no comfort, no clear future. Just wounds that wouldn't heal and a calling he couldn't escape. And because he learned trust in the nothing, when God later gave him everything, worldwide fame, millions of followers, resources to build his hospital, he didn't lose himself. He didn't lose God. Because the foundation was already built in the desert. That's what this season might be for you. Not punishment, not abandonment, but foundation building. The kind that can hold the weight of whatever God wants to build through your life later. And here's the thing. This channel exists to walk with you through these moments, to remind you of saints who survived what you're surviving, to give you tools like the rosary, to create a space where faith isn't performance, it's survival. If this kind of content is helping you, if it's keeping your faith alive, I want to invite you to become a member of this channel. When you become a member, you're not just supporting videos, you're supporting a mission to reach people who are desperate, who are searching, who need to know they're not forgotten. Your membership helps us create more content like this. It helps us reach more souls. and it makes you part of a community that's committed to keeping the faith alive in a world that's trying to kill it. You'll find the membership button right below this video. And I want you to know, every single membership matters. Every single person who says yes to supporting this mission is helping someone else find hope. Now, before you go, I want to pray a blessing over you. Wherever you are right now, whatever you're facing, I want you to know that you're seen. God sees you. Padre Pio sees you, and we see you. You're not invisible. Your struggle isn't meaningless. And the fact that you watched this video all the way to the end tells me something about you. You haven't given up. Not completely. And that's enough. That's more than enough. So I pray that the God who fed thousands with a few loaves, the God who provided for Elijah through ravens, the God who never once forgot his children in the desert, provides for you. I pray that doors you didn't even know existed start opening, that people you never expected start helping, that resources come from places you never imagined. And most of all, I pray that in the waiting, in the not knowing, in the hardest part, you find the strength to keep saying, Jesus, I trust. Even if it's the only prayer you can manage. It's enough. Go in peace, my friend. You're held, you're loved, and you're not walking this road alone.